In the heart of the village, where the earth was cracked and the trees stood like silent sentinels under a scorching sun, Precious grew up in an environment that seemed designed to stifle ambition. Their humble home, nestled near the edge of the village, was often filled with the scent of fresh earth and the sound of rustling leaves. But beyond that, it was a place of constant struggle. The walls, woven from thick straw and mud, offered little protection against the relentless storms that would sometimes tear through the area. And yet, despite their harsh surroundings, there was a quiet resilience in the air, a sense that something greater was possible. Each morning, Precious would rise before the sun, drawn to the warmth of the fire that flickered in the hearth. Her mother, a woman of remarkable strength, was already awake, sitting at the old wooden table with a needle in hand. She worked on patching up clothes for the villagers or sewing garments to sell in the local market. The rhythm of the sewing machine was the heartbeat of their small existence, and Precious, from the moment she could walk, was her mother's shadow. She learned to thread needles, measure fabric, and even assist with the small tasks around the house. But more than anything, it was in these quiet moments, sitting by the fire, that Precious learned the most important lesson: how to dream. Her mother would talk about the world beyond their village, about the cities that sparkled with lights and possibilities. She would tell stories of people who had been born into less than what they had but had risen to greatness, drawing strength from their dreams. These stories became Precious' escape. While her peers were content with the simplicity of village life, Precious wanted more. She wasn't content with just surviving, she wanted to thrive. And in those moments when the sound of the sewing machine blended with the crackling of the fire, Precious would imagine herself far away, standing in a grand hall, giving speeches, leading a life of purpose and influence. But those dreams were far removed from reality. Every time Precious went to the local market with her mother, she was reminded of the limits that society imposed on her. The villagers, mostly farmers and tradespeople, spoke of the difficulties they faced, their lives governed by the seasons, by the whims of nature, and by the ever-present shadow of poverty. Precious' dreams seemed like fragile things, so far beyond the grasp of a girl like her. One particularly vivid scene stuck with Precious, a memory she would carry with her for years to come. It was late one afternoon when the sky had turned a bruising shade of purple. Precious' mother had been working in the garden, trying to salvage what little food they could grow. The crops had been failing for weeks, and the villagers were beginning to whisper that this year's harvest might not be enough to get through the harsh winter. Precious had returned home from school with her books clutched tightly to her chest, her heart pounding as she approached the house. She could already see the worry etched on her mother's face, even from a distance.
"Where have you been?"
her mother had asked, her voice a mixture of concern and exhaustion. Precious, sensing the weight of her mother's unspoken fears, said nothing. She simply handed her mother the small handful of coins she had earned from tutoring the younger children in the village. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. Her mother smiled weakly, but it was the sadness in her eyes that broke Precious' heart.
"You're learning so much. You're going to be something one day, Precious. I just know it."
Those words, meant to comfort, ignited a fire within Precious. She didn't want to be the girl who was only known for surviving. She wanted to be the girl who would rise above. But there was a heavy truth she couldn't ignore. Dreams come at a price. That night, as the storm began to rage outside, with the wind howling like a chorus of ghosts, Precious sat in the dim light of the single lantern they had. Her mother worked quietly beside her, stitching fabric, her brow furrowed in concentration. But Precious couldn't focus. Her mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. She knew the path to something greater wasn't just about books and talent. It was about sacrifice, about pushing through the pain and uncertainty. In the days that followed, Precious found herself at the edge of the village, staring out at the vast, untamed land that stretched beyond the horizon. The sun was setting, casting the world in a golden hue that seemed almost magical. In that moment, Precious made a silent vow. She would leave this place. She would rise above the limitations set by her birth and her circumstances. Her heart pulsed with the certainty that she could become someone who would make her mother proud. But even as the fire of ambition burned within her, Precious couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of fear. What if it wasn't possible? What if the dream she held so tightly to was only a fleeting illusion? The weight of those questions pressed down on her, but she refused to let them crush her spirit. She would push forward, even if it meant taking the road less traveled. Even if it meant sacrificing everything she knew for the hope of something better. The burden of her dreams was heavy, but it was also the thing that kept her going night after night, as the sound of the sewing machine and the crackle of the fire continued to play their steady rhythm in the background. Precious was a quiet observer, always acutely aware of the world around her, yet often silent in the face of its realities. As the years passed and she advanced in school, her intellect began to outshine the simple confines of her village life. In a place where most people were content with the status quo, Precious' hunger for knowledge was a stark contrast to the apathy she saw in her peers. But standing out in a small village was not without its challenges. One morning when Precious was 14, she arrived at school to find a notice posted on the bulletin board. It was an announcement about an upcoming competition, a district-wide academic contest in which the brightest students from surrounding villages would compete. The prize was not just a trophy, but a scholarship that could send the winner to a prestigious school in the city. The thought of such an opportunity was like a distant star on the horizon, seemingly unreachable but so tantalizingly close. 4 days, Precious poured herself into preparation. She would wake up at dawn, study until the first rays of sunlight bathed the earth, and then head to school with her books tightly clutched in her arms. But even in her dedication, there were whispers. Some of the other students laughed behind her back, teasing her for being too serious or too ambitious. In a place where the pursuit of dreams was considered a luxury, Precious was seen as a strange, solitary figure, one who refused to accept the boundaries of their world. It wasn't just the students who mocked her. The teachers, too, were skeptical of her aspirations. One particular incident stood out. Mrs. Kendra, the head teacher, a woman known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense approach, called Precious to her desk after class one afternoon. Her face, lined with years of teaching, was stern.
"Precious,"
Mrs. Kendra began, her voice low but firm.
"I know you're eager, but you must understand that there are limits to what people like us can achieve. You're not meant for a future beyond this village. Dreams, especially those that require so much effort, can be a dangerous thing. You're better off focusing on the here and now."
The words cut through Precious like a blade. The teacher's dismissal wasn't just an insult to her intellect. It was a blunt reminder of the weight of her reality. But rather than deter her, the comment fueled a fire within her. She would prove Mrs. Kendra wrong, not just for herself, but for every girl in the village who dared to dream beyond what they had been taught to believe was possible. The weeks leading up to the competition were grueling. Precious spent countless hours combing through the borrowed textbooks, reading every page, every word. Yet there was never enough time. She worked late into the night, her hands stiff from writing notes in the dim light of a flickering candle. The nights were long and lonely, the wind howling outside, as if the very earth was warning her that dreams come at a steep price. The morning of the competition arrived, and as Precious stood in front of the classroom, the tension in the air was palpable. The other students, many of whom had spent their nights socializing or sleeping, sat confidently at their desks, while Precious was a nervous bundle of energy. She tried to push down the fear that twisted in her stomach. She was just one girl among many, and the odds were against her. But as the questions were read aloud, Precious' focus sharpened. This was her moment. The questions were difficult, far beyond what anyone could have imagined. As the minutes ticked away, Precious felt the pressure mount. But her mind moved with the ease of a seasoned chess player, anticipating each move, solving each problem with a sense of calm that she had never known. In the final minutes, as the last question was placed before her, a strange sense of clarity washed over her. She knew the answer. It was as though her entire life had been preparing her for this one moment. When the competition ended, the room buzzed with whispers, but Precious felt an odd stillness. She had done her best, and that was all that mattered. The next few days were torture, as the results were announced with all the fanfare of a village event. When the names of the winners were finally read aloud, there was a heavy silence before the head teacher called out Precious' name. She had won. The announcement sent a ripple through the village. The same peers who had once laughed at her now looked at her in awe, their eyes wide with disbelief. And even Mrs. Kendra, who had once doubted her, stood in stunned silence, her lips pressed into a tight line. But Precious wasn't interested in the accolades. The victory felt hollow without the validation of the people who had once doubted her. She realized then that winning wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of so much more than what the world had expected of her. In the weeks that followed, Precious' life began to change. The scholarship allowed her to attend a prestigious school in the city, an opportunity that she had once only dreamed about. But even as she left the village behind, she carried with her the same burning desire that had ignited her years earlier. The people who had once ridiculed her now watched from a distance, their opinions divided between admiration and envy. Precious knew that her journey was just beginning. But despite her newfound success, there were moments when the old doubts crept in. In the quiet corners of her heart, she sometimes wondered if she truly belonged in this world of opportunity and possibility. The city was overwhelming. Its pace, its noise, and its people were nothing like the quiet village she had known. But with each passing day, Precious proved to herself that she was more than just a girl from a poor village. She was a force in her own right. Her journey, however, was far from easy. There were countless obstacles ahead, each more difficult than the last. Yet, in her heart, Precious held on to the one truth that had carried her this far. The real struggle was never against others. It was always about fighting to believe in herself, no matter how loud the world screamed that she couldn't. The competition had been just the beginning. The real battle, Precious knew, was yet to come. The moment the scholarship offer arrived, it seemed like a dream, almost too good to be true. Precious had poured years of sweat and determination into her education, and the offer felt like a culmination of all the struggles and sacrifices she had endured. Yet, despite the overwhelming sense of possibility, she could not shake the feeling of impending loss that gripped her heart. It was a day like any other when the letter arrived, an envelope with a gleaming official seal. Precious knew what it was even before she opened it. The thick paper, the elegant typeface, it all pointed to one thing: a scholarship to attend a prestigious university in the capital city. Her pulse quickened as she tore the envelope open, her fingers trembling. She read the letter over and over again, the words blurring together as the reality sank in. She had earned the scholarship. She was going to the city. But as the excitement began to swell in her chest, it was quickly overtaken by a gnawing anxiety. Leaving the village wasn't just about stepping into a new world. It was about stepping away from everything she had ever known. Her mother, the comfort of familiar faces, the simplicity of her life. The scholarship was her ticket to a better future, but it would also mean saying goodbye to the people who had shaped her into who she was. The first person she told was her mother. They sat together on the worn wooden bench outside their home, the weight of the moment hanging in the air between them. Her mother's face was a mix of pride and fear, the kind of expression that only a parent could have when they realized that their child was about to embark on a journey that would take them far away.
"You've worked so hard for this, Precious,"
her mother said softly, her voice almost breaking.
"You've earned this chance. But I don't want to lose you."
Precious felt her chest tighten at the words. She had known this moment was coming, the day when her mother would have to let her go, but hearing it out loud felt like a blow to the heart. Her mother's hands, rough from years of labor, reached out to gently take her daughter's hand. The simple gesture carried so much weight, so much love, so much sacrifice. Her mother had given everything for her. And now, she was giving her the freedom to follow her own path.
"I don't want to leave you, Mama."
Precious whispered, her voice barely audible.
"But I have to. I can't stay here and be everything you want me to be. I have to become who I'm meant to be."
The conversation between them was short, but its impact reverberated through every fiber of Precious' being. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared up at the cracked ceiling, her mind racing. The decision to leave wasn't just about chasing a dream. It was about understanding that dreams always came with sacrifices. The weight of that realization pressed down on her as the darkness outside seemed to reflect the uncertainty she felt in her heart. What would the city be like? What would she become once she left? And, most haunting of all, would she be able to truly let go of everything she had known? The night before her departure, the village held a small farewell gathering for her. The entire community came together to celebrate her success, but for Precious, the evening felt more like a funeral than a celebration. She was surrounded by familiar faces, people she had known her entire life, neighbors who had watched her grow, friends who had laughed and cried with her. Yet, for the first time, she felt like an outsider among them. They saw her as a symbol of hope, but Precious felt nothing but the weight of their expectations. As the evening wore on, she found herself alone outside, standing by the small garden that her mother had tended to for years. The moonlight bathed the earth in a soft, silvery glow, and for a brief moment, Precious could almost feel the weight of the land beneath her feet, as if it were holding her back from her dreams. She could hear the quiet murmurs of the villagers inside, but their voices felt distant, as though she were already a world away. Her mother joined her shortly, standing silently beside her. No words were needed between them. Their presence alone spoke volumes. It was a bittersweet silence, filled with love and sorrow, hope and uncertainty. Precious knew that her mother, with all her strength, had never let go of the dreams she had once had for herself. And now, she was passing those dreams on to her daughter, allowing her to take them further than she ever could.
You're going to make something of yourself, Precious.
Her mother said quietly, her voice firm with a conviction only a mother's love could provide.
But never forget where you come from. No matter how far you go, this place will always be a part of you.
The next morning, Precious stood at the edge of the village, her bags packed, her heart heavy. As the bus pulled away, she watched the familiar sights of her childhood fade into the distance. The small, winding roads, the thatched roof homes, the towering hills. The life she had known, the simplicity of it all, was slipping away. The city was everything her mother had described. Vast, noisy, and overwhelming. It was a world where time moved faster, where everything felt like it had a purpose, a drive.